I'll be back.
We fight for love.
All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the current episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast, because I've just decided to stop keeping track of the numbers. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
And I'm WhiskeyBrewer.
Back again doing one of the pile of scripts he asked me to do.
Oh, yeah. Guess who's back?
Yeah, and I was
back again.
I was going to do a solo episode earlier this month on the David Gordon Green Suspiria script, but that script was just so underwhelming and dull, I just couldn't bring myself to read it again, and I faffed around, and then I realized, oh shit, got a recording session for this script coming up. So I just jumped over to this.
And I've been prepared for this for months.
Yeah, because you sent me the list in like August. It was like this, Jeepers Creepers 3.
Dead Star.
Was it Dead Star?
Dead Star was on there, and I can't remember the other two because I said these are my top 5 that I'm doing next.
Well, I'm going to force you to do The Stand eventually.
I'd do that just because it's Stephen King, and also it kind of fits the stuff I've done before this, considering it's either been Stephen King or Aliens. This is like the aberration so far.
Well, I knew you would be up for Aliens, so I just went fuck it. Let's ask you to do it.
Yes.
And actually, interestingly enough, even though I'm not going to cover this one because it's a movie that's actually getting made, I did get my hands on Dr. Sleep.
Oh, nice.
It's a fucking long script at 140 pages, but...
And it's a long-ass book.
And I've not read it yet. It's been sitting on my shelf for years.
And I've read it. It's only the past 4 or 5 King books I haven't read yet.
Yeah, I've got way too much backlog there. But moving on to the topic, well, before we move on to the topic for today, I just wanted to give a few shout-outs. One to the Shelved Film Podcast, who also covers scripts. So, he's been doing some new episodes lately, so go check those out. The link is down below. We're on... Remember to check out the social media links on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, and the blogger, which I do actually remember to update now. And we're on we're on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. I will read out a review if you leave one on iTunes. Got a really nice one last, so make sure to leave your reviews. I'll even read the bad ones because at least that should be entertaining.
Yeah, the Konami burger of reviews.
Do you have anything you want to plug?
Actually, I've got nothing to plug. My life is absolutely boring.
That was what happened with my host for the Halloween episode. It was like, if you want to follow me, you can sit outside my house and watch me go to McDonald's, to the gym.
That would be me. Always like, you can follow me on Google Plus before that gets shut down in August.
Oh, that's getting shut down?
Yeah, because Google had they had a Facebook incident of security issue, but rather than go in front of Congress, they decided they're going to shut down Google Plus.
Well, it's a fucking useless social media platform anyways.
Yeah, everyone's moving to a site called MeWe now, which is essentially a cross between Facebook and Google Plus. So, and it is actually a lot better. So,
I've never actually used Google Plus. I only have it because YouTube made me get it.
Same with me when I started up a new YouTube account.
Yeah, but the only good thing that came out of like the Google Plus integration was that we can make longer comments.
Yes.
So the subject for tonight is Commando 2. No, not that Bollywood movie. Yes, that's a real thing. It's a sequel script to the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and before we talk a little bit about the original Commando, because let's be honest, that's going to be a very short conversation. But the plot of Commando 2 is that it's several years later, Jenny is older, and John Matrix, his
still doing his thing in the woods.
Yeah, we don't really know what.
Chopping down trees and
and
training for World's Strongest Man again.
And his his old friend General Kirby asks him to come join him on this mission that's being partially set up with the help of a defense contractor named McCarran Industries. Matrix says no, of course. Kirby gets killed, and Matrix comes out of the woodwork and goes after McCarran, telling him about how he has a security leak. And after impressing him in a certain way, which we'll get to, he gets a job, refurbishing all the security for McCarran Industries. And it all relates to this drug lord who got busted out of prison at the very beginning of the script named. And so the whole thing is basically Arnold Schwarzenegger ends the war on drugs single-handedly.
Hey, who else is going to do it? Reagan couldn't do it,
Well, I mean, Rocky ended the Cold War single-handedly. Maybe he could do it.
That's true, yeah. They got the wrong movie actors to do it. You don't get people from the 50s to do it. You get action stars from the 80s to end all this stuff.
You can have Stallone can walk up to the drug lords, be like, if I can change and you can change, everybody can change, and the drug lords just shoot him.
yeah. Dolph Lundgren, Ivan Drago knocking down the Berlin Wall single-handedly.
I would love to see that. Like, it's the Creed 2, they do like a montage of what happens in between movies, and you just see Drago with a big ass.
As he's listening to David Hasselhoff.
Yes.
In the background.
I swear, not to get too off topic, but if they play No Easy Way Out in Creed 2, I'm immediately giving it like a perfect score.
Oh, that'd be perfect, yeah. I'm going to remember some stuff that happened 5 minutes ago. While listening to topical hits of the 80s.
But no, Commando 2, Commando is, of course, one of the big quintessential Arnold movies. In fact, it probably is the quintessential Arnold movie in that it just defines everything about who
created the quip Arnold. I think it's that of that time. This is where the one-liners really started to kick in.
It really defines almost everything about Arnold as a movie star. And it's interesting just how quickly his sort of persona came together. Because you had Conan in 82, and of course he had done stuff in the 70s which didn't work out, but that was sort of his break. Then Terminator happened, and then Commando in 85.
That's because Terminator was 84?
Yes.
83, 84, he did that, yeah.
And in between, Arnold, I can't remember what order it was, but he did like those 3 De Laurentiis movies. He did Destroyer, Red Sonja, and Raw Deal, almost back-to-back just to get out of his contract.
Yeah, I think those were in that period, especially how short his role is in Red Sonja. So it's I'm going to do that on my off days from Conan, and then when that's done, I'm going to do this film with Robert Davi. And
I still need to see Raw Deal, but I do know with Red Sonja, he actually thought he had a much smaller role than he had, and he didn't expect to be on set as much as he was, and so he was just miserable.
Yeah. Hey, he got Bridget Nielsen before Sly did, so, one up for him.
Yeah, Sly won the box office in 85, but Arnold won that contest.
Yeah. Here, my sloppy second.
Yeah, he hit and ran.
All the way to the mountains.
But
no, he chops down trees.
And Commando is just great. It's just got everything Arnold in it. It's got all the one-liners. Him using his physicality as just part of the character, lifting the phone booth out of the wall.
Yeah, and again, I keep saying about the trees, but him carrying the massive tree trunk on his shoulder with only a thin piece of shirt.
Yeah, it's just a wife beater.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just I'm going to carry this. I'm going to feed a deer.
It's got
He's sensitive.
Massive close-up, like tight close-ups of his muscles.
Again, those were just practice shots for Predator.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's got all the action, all the one-liners. You've got Bennett, who, despite not really being in the movie that much when you think about it, is one of these sort of iconic Arnold villains.
He is. He does have that. He has more of a presence than Dan Hedaya does, and he's meant to be the main villain.
Well, Hedaya's an afterthought in the movie when you really think about it. The real sort of battle really is between Matrix and Bennett, because Hedaya is just a plot device.
Yeah, and it is between Matrix and Bennett, and that's all to do stuff that happened before the film's set. It's all this stuff in the past. It is this oddly, it's one of the few human-y, well, I wouldn't say human-y sort of villains,
No.
but one more well-rounded villains that Arnie would have.
Yeah, and I think I like how Bennett is actually really kind of smart and has shit together, because he was like, because the dictator guy is like, you're the only one here who's afraid of the Matrix. He goes, yeah, because I'm smart.
It's like, yeah, I've worked with him. I know this sort of stuff.
Yeah, like he knows that the guy is going to wage a one-man war against these people.
I went up against Mad Max. I know crazy when I see it.
Yes, definitely. And that's another kind of iconic role that Vernon Wells played, the Mohawk guy in the assless chaps.
Yeah, who takes a ride on the front of a truck.
Yep. It just has that shot of just screaming into the camera at the end of Mad Max 2.
Yeah, that is perfect. That zoom on that one is perfect.
And
it's like the alternate, like the camera zooms in on him as in Mad Max 2, and then it zooms out on him in Commando at the end.
That's true. That's true. But of course, you have all those sort of memorable things about it, like Arnold driving down the hill. You know, the guy trying to negotiate with him goes like, "You have to cooperate, right?" Wrong.
Bang. Yeah, driving with no brakes, taking out people one by one, stealing cars,
swinging across the mall.
That is Tarzan audition for the film that didn't happen.
that whole climax at the end on the island, up to
the true one-man army stuff.
Yeah, up to and including the garden shed scene where he's chucking saw blades at people.
That is so absurd. It's brilliant.
And he chops off that guy's arm with a machete, and there's actually a bit they cut out where he picks up the guy's arm and bangs him over the head of it and says, "Stop whining," or something like that.
You wonder if Shane Black saw that and thought, I'm going to use that in a Predator movie someday.
Oh, geez, that movie. I have a guy in the comments on my Predators episode talking my ear off about it.
Oh, yeah. Is it the same guy who he leaves a lot of comments on the...
No, it's a different guy.
Oh, is it a different guy?
Yeah.
Because I remember going through some of the past ones, and one guy, he's really into it. It's great to have, get that conversation going with people who are listening to the podcast. Definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. But no, it's one guy's just talking about me. I kind of sort of half-heartedly defended The Predator in that episode because, let's be honest, it's a flawed as hell movie. But I just kind of enjoyed it anyways.
Yeah, I did as well. But you could just tell where the studio got involved in that.
But to move on, yeah, that whole garden shed scene, and of course the fight with Bennett at the end. I love how Bennett goes from being the most calm and collected person on the island to 30 seconds of being mocked by John Matrix. He just loses his goddamn mind.
I don't need no gun.
I don't need the girl. And I love how he makes a big show of throwing away his pistol, but then at the end of the fight, he still has his Uzi with him.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah, he does.
I'm not going to shoot you between the eyes, Matrix.
I'm going to shoot you in the balls.
And of course, Matrix gets the pipe in. And I love how he gets thrown into the electrical thing, screams like a girl, and is perfectly fine.
He does. It's like his Iron Man armor. It's 900%. He just charges straight back at him.
And let's be honest, Vernon Wells, he should have been Kano.
Yes.
I mean, I do like the guy in the movie, but if you're going to do Australian Kano, he could probably be Kano now, to be honest.
He could still be, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. I never thought of that. That would actually be perfect.
And also, it's just an insane... It's a superhero movie, let's be honest.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
Right now, I'm very hungry. Yeah, you got Bill Duke. It's a really good cast. You got Bill Duke from Predator in there. You got David Patrick Kelly from 5 different... every movie, basically. He's
the guy who appeared in everything before other people took over. People like John Carroll Lynch took over.
Yeah.
And Dan Hedaya as generic.
Yeah, that's a connection to Alien for you.
Yeah, there's another one. That's why they bring me in for the alien stuff.
And of course, the country that they want Matrix to go to assassinate the guy is Valverde, which is in every 80s action movie. That's where Predator takes place.
That's right, yeah.
That's where that guy from Die Hard 2 is flying in from.
That's right. Yeah, the original Django flying in from Valverde.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, that's a weird subplot.
Uh, that's great. Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense thinking of Die Hard 2, considering the story of leading into what we're talking about is Commando 2. This whole weird link to Die Hard that it supposedly has.
Yes, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but the last thing I want to say about Commando, because that's going to deal with some of my criticism of this script, is it's a movie that really wastes no time at all.
No, when you watch it now, you realize how fast-paced it is.
Yeah, because it has a little montage of his team members getting taken out at the beginning. You get another brief montage of him doing sitcom-y shit with his daughter.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm sensitive. I feed a deer.
Yes, the ice cream.
And what's in the sandwich? You don't want to know.
And then you get the little exposition scene with Kirby, and then the bad guys immediately show up, and then from there on, the movie is just moving, even in some of the slower scenes.
I think because it all takes place over like 14 hours at that point.
It's 12 hours from when the plane takes off.
Yeah. And I just say it's like 2 hours for the little bits beforehand.
Yeah, and it does a really good job of keeping momentum and having a really good ticking clock.
Yeah, yeah. How long have we got left? Look at the watch. Ooh, product placement.
And I mean, it's a movie. It's just a solid, fun action movie, which people rather cynically tend to mock. You see a bit on the internet nowadays, thanks to Doug Fucker making fun of it for the Nostalgia Critic.
Christ. See, I always loved Commando. It was one of the first Arnie films I saw.
Yeah, Doug Wanker.
Is he related to Guyler? Hashtag fuck Guyler.
Had to work that in there somewhere, I guess.
Somehow, that's my thing. I'm gonna get T-shirts and print that on it and make millions.
I need to bring you in for any Guyler scripts I have.
Any Guyler script, any Alien script.
Because there's a Stars My Destination adaptation written by Guyler,
which we've talked about on many occasions.
And there's a remake of The Killer that was written by Hill and Guyler. So Commando 2 is an interesting case. Now we're going to talk about first. There's this whole story that's been going on online for years and years and years that Commando 2 became Die Hard.
Yeah, and that's how I first heard about the script for Commando 2, was this whole Die Hard thing.
And Stephen E. DeSouza has come out in multiple interviews who wrote the script, and it's revised by Frank Darabont, a.k.a. Ray Charles could operate cameras better than these people, Frank Darabont. If you've read those leaked Walking Dead emails, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
But DeSouza's come out in interviews saying that was never true at all, that Die Hard was always just the adaptation of Nothing Lasts Forever. And what DeSouza thinks is that the two sort of got mixed up because the Commando 2 script involves him fighting bad guys in an office building at one point. And so Die Hard is about an action hero trapped in an office building.
So, yeah. So let's combine the two and, they are the same thing.
And I can kind of see how that maybe got started because looking at the story setup looking at, Die Hard's story setup, you could almost imagine like Matrix is going to go visit Jenny's mother on Christmas or something.
Yeah. And, that would actually be interesting. Yeah. And he's actually stayed on a plane the whole time. That's why he's got to do the foot massage thing, make fists with your toes.
Matrix would just walk over the broken glass.
He would. It would be him fighting Alexander.
Good enough.
Yes, I could never remember his surname. They would just be fighting. He'd be the Bennett of the film.
Yes,
essentially.
But no, it's one of those things where I could kind of see how people would buy into that because you can kind of see where the pieces could possibly fit together.
Yeah.
And also, they never do address what happened to Jenny's mother in the actual movie.
No, that's the thing. It's just never mentioned. He's just the single dad.
Now, in this script, they do say that she's dead. But in the movie, they don't say anything about that.
No, it's just... but it does actually say why he's so desperate to get her back. It's all she's all he has left.
Yep.
I will rip apart nations to save my daughter.
Why don't they just call him Girl George? It would cut down on the confusion. Just the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger looking at like a teen girl magazine in the 80s is hilarious.
That's probably where they got the idea from the A-Team episode where Boy George actually appears, Cowboy George, and you've got Mr. T absolutely like clicking his fingers and smiling his ass off at the end of the episode as Boy George performs "Karma Chameleon."
I did not know that was a thing.
It is. You watch the episode; it's hysterical. It's 80s. It's pure cheese.
I used to watch A-Team reruns a shitload when I was like 5 or 6.
I still do because they still show them on and off in the UK.
Yeah, I think TV Land ran those early in the morning before I went to school or something, but I was a little...
Nice. You're pumped up to build stuff at school.
But so, okay, and also I think it's interesting that Commando, you would think they would have tried a sequel.
Well, yeah, because the ending, there is that slight sort of setup for it. And it's just like, it has that something like, and you'd think the running gag in the series would be Kirby turning up trying to get him to come on missions and him going, no, but then getting dragged into stuff.
This is the last time.
How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
It would be pretty funny just to see like continuous like Commando movies and Kirby shows up at the end and goes like, more bodies, John. That's one of the funniest lines in the movie is like, leave anything for us, John? Just bodies.
Just bodies.
And before we move on to the script, I wanted to mention the cameo appearance by the late great Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well, actually, until we started talking about Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, him, and also it's not far off from his role in Aliens because he's tracking stuff.
Yeah, and he's trying to get in contact with people, and
I lost him, sir.
Where's Barsky? He's gone. Sarge is gone.
It's like the second he goes, I lost him, sir. I just expect the guy to go, well, you're not reading it right.
That's in the room.
It's funny because that whole scene you could almost cut out of the movie.
You could. I think it's only there because in the original Commando, it's that whole thing about the firing range.
Yeah, it's to explain
why. But you could cut out that reference as well.
Yeah, you could cut out that whole scene and it wouldn't make a difference. But I'm glad it's there just because it's like, hey, more Bill Paxton. Yeah.
If Arnie's in the film, I'm going to be there unless it's with Dino De Laurentiis, and then I'm going to go work with somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly, I can't verify this, but on Facebook it was mentioned that when they tried to do Conan 3 again in the 90s, they tried to get, when they eventually turned it into Cull, but supposedly, like, they couldn't get Arnold to even return their phone calls for like a year.
Oh no. And who did they get in instead of him? Hercules. But
okay, so jumping into the script now, just looking at the title page, it's Commando 2 by Stephen E. DeSouza and revisions by Frank Darabont, and it's dated February of 89, and it's interesting it took them that long to try this out. Especially with all the films Arnie had been doing, you'd think, oh, this did kind of well, let's get a sequel out there, get his name going. Yeah, and also with all the Cold War references in it, which we'll get to that. We'll foreshadow that, yes. yes. But okay, so it starts with the final scene of Commando with Matrix and Jenny on the beach talking to Kirby, and it's like we get the whole "just bodies" line. It's like this is the last time. He's like, until next time, no chance. And it says they walk towards a plane, but no, they cut out the entire character of Cindy from this scene. Yeah, no subsidiaries for Rae Dawn Chung on this. And now she may have had a bigger role in the DeSouza version before the revisions, but we'll talk about that later when that character shows up. Yeah, we'll save that one, yeah. She got replaced with a different character. But okay, so then it cuts to the opening credits sequence, where it specifically says it's set to The Brazilian by Genesis. Which is actually a pretty cool instrumental from an album that came out in 1986. The Invisible Touch album. Yeah, and so instead of getting the song we ended Commando with, which was The Power Station, We Fight for Love, we're going to replace it with a synth-led pop-prog instrumental. No, and it's actually a pretty cool idea, though. It is, actually, yeah. I had to actually look up that song when I first read this thing. And I've got the album. Oh, and both times I've read this, I've actually listened to that during the opening credits sequence.
And I did that the first time I read the script as well. And picturing it, it works so well.
Yeah, it does. You're the big Genesis guy of the two of us.
Oh yeah, the pacing of it, because it's a mid-paced instrumental, and how it because when it cuts to the opening credits and what's going on in the opening credits, which is literally a helicopter ballet of sorts.
Yep, two helicopters. It's two helicopters flying along the coast,
and beats of the instrumental suit it so well. You can just see how it's done, and descriptive bit would go with a certain bit of the song, and it's just like, ooh, I'm already into this. This has me gripped.
That's where the cut. Yeah, you can see where the cuts are. And so what's going on is that these two black unmarked Hueys, they're flying down the coast, and this is sort of intercut with this drug lord named Nestor Pedrosa, who's he's getting off the bus to get put in this federal prison, and he's meeting with the governor, with the warden or whatever, who's saying like, "Oh, this is you're a dead man, you're in hell" or something like that. And he was reminding me of Walton Goggins in the second G.I. Joe movie.
Oh yes,
when he's showing off Cobra Commander.
I didn't think of that. That's actually, I like that. Yeah.
The main thing I remember about that scene is when Cobra Commander busts out. And he looks over at Destro in the little tube and goes, "You're out of the band."
No regenerations for you, Doctor. Doo-doo-doo.
Oh yeah, that was Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, who hated his time doing G.I. Joe and refused to come back point blank for the sequel.
But no, so that whole scene is going on, and then the helicopters show up, start shredding the shit out of the prison.
Yeah, and they're taking out guards, prisoners. It's literally just clearing the ground.
They destroy a guard tower with a missile.
Yeah, and that's because one guy with one of the rifles gets a shot off, and it pings off the side of the helicopter. And they're like, "No, you don't, motherfucker." And it's literally what would have been the pyro budget for most films would have just been blowing up this tower. The way it's described.
Yes, and then so Pedrosa actually gets the warden. He holds him hostage, and then the helicopters land, and these army guys get out, they're soldiers and mercenaries or whatnot,
all black clad, faces covered.
They break his chains off, and then he says, "No warden, hell waits for you," and then shoots him 6 times before they all fly off. And I'm like, oh crap, that's kind of a grab you by the balls opening.
It is, and during all this time, the script specifies that the Brazilian is still playing in the background.
And it tells you when it...
Yes.
But it doesn't specifically say it's in the movie, it says it's best read to the Brazilian.
But because it says that, that's all I can picture this scene done to. It wouldn't, in my mind now, it wouldn't work without a good bit of Phil Collins. I can feel it coming
in the air tonight.
Boom. Yeah, the drum solo would been when the tower blew up.
Boom, 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 boom. This is my favorite part coming up right here. Show some respect. He took a punch from Mike Tyson. And now we're referencing The Hangover. Okay, so then we cut to the mall from the original Commando. And Jenny is now a teenager, and they're in the music store on different sides, but she's browsing and he's browsing through the tapes. Looking for
the classics.
Looking for Gimme Some Lovin'.
Spencer Davis Group, Steve Winwood.
Which the gags they do with that, it's like they did Commando and a little bit of Twins.
Yeah, that's probably where they nicked some of the stuff from. They probably just ripped the script apart for various Arnie films later on.
There's this guy from Jenny's high school who's a senior named Brad Hanley, but calls himself the Bradster.
Yeah, obviously the high school jock, the captain of the football team, I think is how you could best think of him.
He's like Robert Downey Jr. from Weird Science, or the guy from Elm Street 2.
Yes, actually,
Robert Russler.
Yes. Oh, that would be perfect. That'd have to be who they got into play if they've actually made this now.
Yeah, and he's trying to charm Jenny, get her to come to this party or whatever that's going on. Then he opens his jacket and it's full of drugs. He's like the merchant from Resident Evil 4, only instead of weapons, he's got drugs under his jacket.
He's the DAA's supplier. It's the way, because difficult to what type of jacket is he meant to be wearing, because when he opens it up and it's got all the drugs, I suddenly pictured him in a trench coat.
Yeah.
Being this like he's gone from the high school jock to the social outcast at school. It's like his coat changes between shots.
What are you buying?
Doctor, you got any leeches for this?
But then, of course, Matrix sees what's going on, walks over there. He, drags him out. There's this whole thing where, the guy's like, your dad? Yeah, I bet he even looks like Ward Cleaver. And it's really funny because he really is like a sitcom dad in this script.
Because it's like, you don't see him at this point. And Jenny's kind of getting sort of freaked out as the Bradster gets closer. And it's like, oh, your dad, you still live with daddy. I bet he looks like Ward Cleaver. Hand clamps on the back of his neck. Yes, when I wear a jumper, we look like twins. It's like, and it describes it, it's like he just turns him round to stare at him. And it is one of those slow motion double takes from 80s comedies.
But he drags him out of the store, and there's these security guards. They're like, uh-oh, someone call the police, Godzilla's back.
Yeah, when I read this, it's like thinking, this script is meant to be set, 4 to 5 years after the first one. And it's like, they're meant to be the guards from the first film. And it's like, hasn't Matrix been back there in 5 years? Why are they suddenly going back now? Has he waited 5 years to look for this cassette? It was just the way it described it. It's like he's waited 5 years to look for a cassette and go back to this mall, even though his daughter's probably been there so many times.
But yeah, he's dragging the Bradster around. He was saying this guy tried to sell drugs to my daughter, and they're like, they're like, well, we can't actually do anything to him. He's like, my dad's a lawyer.
He'd sue your asses. You need probable cause.
So Matrix flips him over, dangles him by his ankle, and shakes all the drugs out of his jacket.
I said I'd buy drugs from you. Yeah, I lied.
And it's like, is that probable cause? Where he's like, good enough, and the guy gets arrested.
And Jenny is, she's horrified because all her friends for school are suddenly in the background staring at her.
Yep.
Again, that's the thing. Have they not met her dad before at parent-teacher evenings?
I'm trying to imagine how that would go.
He's sat on a normal sized chair, but it just looks like one of those infant school chairs for him. And he's talking to the gym teacher. I hear you wanted to play dodgeball. No, we wanted to do a thing. No.
He's sitting in one of those desks with the desk attached to the chair. He's just jammed himself in the one.
It's when Homer gains all the weight and he has to suck in the air to sit in it. and his stomach just scoots over the top.
And he tries to get up and he takes the desk with him, like Jake in the Blues Brothers.
Excuse me?
But no, so they're driving home and he's playing the Spencer Davis group, Give Me Some Lovin' over and over again.
Yeah, and he's talking about how this was the only song he listened to in East Germany. It actually specifies... It's probably they had to finally explain his accent. It's like
they do in the first movie. He mentions East Germany very briefly.
Yeah, but in this one, it is more of a thing.
Yeah, they mention him being an immigrant who thought America was a good place to raise a child, and these drugs are not the America I know. He gets very.
It's very, it's like Nancy Reagan has written this script.
Yeah, he gets
for him.
Yeah, he gets very. It's very different from what you would expect. And Matrix in this has become a bit of just, an 80s kind of sitcom dad, a little bit even more so than in the first movie.
Yeah, but you can tell his blood's boiling that sort of bit, They probably do little shots of him gripping the steering wheel and
the dialogue with that stuff gets maybe a little too heavy as it goes along. To the point where he's practically speechifying, and I don't really see Arnold, outside of the prayer to Crom, really being much of a speechy actor.
No, that's true. And considering the fact that he's talking to his daughter Jenny, who would be played by Alyssa Milano, who a few years after this point was actually really into her drugs.
Yeah, she was into her drugs, showing up naked on the Outer Limits and stuff.
And doing the Poison Ivy sequel.
Oh.
Yes.
Although, of all those... Nazbaz Double Dragon.
Oh, yes, she was in that with a young Mark Dacascos.
Yeah, and some other guy no one ever heard of again.
And a white guy who probably went on to appear in Beverly Hills 90210.
But okay, so they get home.
After playing the cassette, to calm himself down, he says, "You'll listen to this song that I really enjoyed." And he puts on Spencer Davis Group's Give Me Some Lovin', and it specifies that it's been on repeat constantly when they arrive back at their mountain lodge.
Yeah, and she says, how many times are you going to listen to this until you learn to like it?
Which oddly could sound creepy coming from the wrong actor.
Oh, yeah, if it was like Kevin Spacey. Louis C.K.
C.K. This is what Harvey Weinstein said in his office.
All right, Alyssa, you want that double dragon roll?
You'll learn to like it. I don't know why I made him sound like Hannibal Lecter.
We are gonna get it. If more people listen to this show, oh boy, would we get shit for that. But I don't care. So, but okay. So,
and I think for my Limp Bizkit gag earlier,
it's yeah.
About Fred Durst's house.
Well, that was both of us. We just kept using song names.
It went on and on and on.
I might trim that and make it into its own video on YouTube.
Please, it'd be perfect.
Although I don't know if I can edit in all the different song titles. I'll probably just put a Goofy Durst picture.
Yeah, that'd probably be worth it, yeah. Or a shot of Fred Durst's face on Tom Cruise's body.
But, well, it's or the Ben Stiller impersonation of Tom Cruise from that MTV sketch.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, okay, they get back to the house, and Kirby shows up flying in a McCarran Defense Industries helicopter, piloted by Paco Lopez, who's an old comrade of Matrix's.
Who we assume was possibly part of the old unit, whose half the members were killed off in the first one, but it's a bit grey on that.
Yeah, they don't really say where they knew each other from, but Lopez is now like a civilian pilot. And like Matrix actually asks McCarran, not McCarran, McCarran doesn't show up, but he asks Kirby, like, are you with the private sector? And he goes, no, John, you know I got khaki running in my veins.
I like that, yeah. Even straight away, Paco Lopez, he's got that comic relief.
And Lopez is like saying, like, hey, I got a son about your daughter's age, and they're already...
They do, and she's mortified, especially after the fact that the helicopter has landed on the flowers.
Oh,
at the front, which she specifies that I spent ages planting those. I said, well, when John, when it's a hard LZ, doesn't matter where you have to land.
Yeah, they were his dad. They were Matrix's begonias that he planted. She says,
I love that. It's like a scene cut from the opening montage in the first one when he's feeding the deer, and then he's planting the flowers, then he's chopping down trees. And then he's watching Leave It to Beaver or something. I don't know. But
Kirby says that, he's part of a collaborative effort for this mission between McCarran and the military and the government. He says he wants Matrix to help lead this team he's putting together. And, of course, Matrix says no, like, promise not to leave Jenny after her mother died. Stuff like that.
And I plan to keep that... Yeah, because they're planning to go to Costa Rica to recapture Pedrosa. And it's like, and they've got good intel on where he's going to be. He's like, no, I cannot leave. I've got my Spencer Davis Group's cassette to listen to.
His 8-track.
My 8-track. Yeah. I have to record it from the radio.
And of course, there was a bit of exposition over like some news broadcasts in the background of the music store scene where it said that Pedrosa, he's a drug lord from Panama who got caught in the U.S. and imprisoned. He was caught on U.S. soil doing something. It wasn't really specified what.
No, and we caught, and it's like now he's escaped, but they oddly, and they seem to say that it's like he's the one who killed everybody in the prison, making the escape, and you think, no, wrong, fake news.
And okay, so we then cut to a squad of commandos. They're in the Costa Rican jungle, and they're approaching this convoy of a bunch of
probably made up of Green Berets, like Bill Duke from the first one.
Yeah. Whom Matrix eats for breakfast, and right now is very hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's a convoy of these trucks, which are basically they're going through Costa Rica, and it's Pedrosa trying to make his way back to Panama. And so these commandos, they approach it, and like the tarps get pulled off the trucks, and they have 3 quad 50 caliber machine guns, which is 4 50 cals lashed together, and so there's 3 of these things, so that's 12 50 cals, basically.
And I love how it's described. It's like this full-on paragraph just describing. It's like James Cameron level of lovingly describing guns.
But also, this is at a time when I don't think the 50 caliber was quite as well known. Because now, post Rambo 4, everybody fucking knows what that thing is and what it can do. But they're like...
And that was just one. And that was just one single.
Yeah, this is 12.
This is 12, strapped together with gaffer tape and spit.
Yeah, and apparently, the Quad 50 is actual real weapon.
It's insane.
But so the Commandos, they all get shredded to pieces by machine gun fire.
So the forest is painted with their bodies. It's like, Christ.
And you see Pedrosa standing off to the side, twirling his mustaches and whatnot.
Smoke, yeah, with a cigarette on one of those sort of those penguin style holders, smoking it, probably going, nah, I'll get you next time, Batman.
And I'm gonna say, Pedrosa actually disappears from the script at this point for quite a while.
It's a massive chunk. It just focuses on a lot more, but it's like, at least he makes an impression in this opening bit, just going,
And so Matrix learns about all of this on the news, which is interesting considering what a top secret operation this sounded like it should be.
Yeah, which it's like they only put it on the news because of General Kirby being part of the group, and it's like he's a war hero, so they're flying his body back. And it's like, well, how can they be flying his body back when you consider the script mentioned that they were all turned to mulch? Were they just put in a garden bag and just put in a freezer or something?
They put them in buckets like Johnny Depp at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. But that's how they did that sequence. It was the bodies of these soldiers.
But so Matrix, he attends Kirby's funeral with Lopez. And then he goes to the McCarran office complex, which is it's a big business park.
Yeah, it would be like a business park, industrial estate.
It's a big complex. And so he goes into the front gate. He tries to, he wants to get a meeting with McCarran, but he gets blocked by the head security guard, Charlie Dorrit. And then McCarran himself pulls up in his limousine, and Matrix goes to talk to him, ask him what went wrong. He goes your security sucks, McCarran.
And it's like, you're not allowed in anyway. You don't have security. And then Trent McCarran's head of security.
No, it's Jordan Gunther. Trent's a different character.
Is he a different character?
Trent is the Sully-ish character later.
Yes, he is.
But no, so it's Jordan Gunther who's head of security, who's really pissed off at Matrix and stuff for not liking his security. And so McCarran's like, hey, we can't talk to a civilian about a top secret mission, a security issue. And so Matrix is like, well, your security still sucks. And he goes, prove it. And then walks off into the building and locks Matrix out of the complex. And so Matrix sort of takes that as a challenge.
Which I love this bit. This is just, this whole next sequence is just fun levels of insanity.
It's almost more Jackie Chan than Arnold.
Actually, yes, based on what he has to do, because it's like he walks off and then when he's out of sight, runs around a corner. Is this meant to be happening in the daytime or nighttime?
I think it's nighttime.
I think it is nighttime at this point. Because I just think if it's daytime, him running around a corner is not really going to do much for a man his size.
No. And I will say right now, McCarran and Gunther, this entire script, I was just imagining Ronnie Cox and Michael Ironside.
Yes.
Yes, just playing their roles exactly the way they played them in Total Recall.
And Trent would have been the other guy from Total Recall with the glasses.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure she hated every minute of it. That guy who was really, really badly ADR'd in a bunch of scenes.
Yes, but he was still a fantastic character.
Yes. There. Total Recall. That's another Arnold sequel. I have a Total Recall 2 script.
Oh my god.
That one's okay. I wish the other ones would leak out because those sound really interesting. To move all this, so Matrix, he takes basically McCarran's sarcastic prove it as a challenge, and so he's walking along the outer wall of the complex, looking up at it, and there's these security guys in like a golf cart like come up on him and they're like, hey, stop, whatever, even though he's not really doing anything at this point. He runs up on top of the golf cart and then uses it to climb over the wall.
It is, and it's that moment you saying about Jackie Chan, that it's just thinking he's doing like just gonna bound it. It's like, oh, I was the Olympic gymnast in East Germany.
like when Jackie Chan is like climbing the wall to get into the consulate in the first Rush Hour.
Yes,
and he still has Chris Tucker's steering wheel.
I forgot about that bit. Yeah,
and so he gets over the wall. He knocks out the power. And McCarran, Gunther, and the company lawyer who's on retainer, Melinda, who they were meeting with, Melinda Taft, they get trapped in an elevator.
Yeah,
and so
they're trapped, but then, of course, after he shuts off the power, he runs into a single security guard, and who they're facing each other. He goes, "Does your job give you health insurance?" "Well, yeah, I think so." Knocks him out. Just like, what?
And he gets surrounded by security guards, so he runs up like a maintenance ramp into like a behind the scenes kind of area.
Yeah, it's all pitch black. They can't see him.
And he comes rolling back down in the dumpster. So once again, very Jackie Chan.
Dumpster, and of course you got all the security guards, all these golf buggies, and they just get taken out.
Yeah, and there's like this whole thing where they're like watching the security like remotely, and they're like going like, wait a minute, we think the intruder is over there, and they're like, no, that's our guys, idiot.
And then we'll just try to track him, but they can't find anything.
Yeah, it's the Matrix crashes through the door of the main building, and he runs around. He runs into like into like a research and development area, busts open a filing cabinet by dropping it over a staircase, takes out like a random document labeled top secret, writes something on it, and then faxes it. And
all this while McCarran, Melinda, and Gunther are still in the elevator, and it's like, oh, what's going on? We need sit rep, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, then they decide they're going to climb out through the roof of the elevator. And Melinda, of course, being the lady, they're quite polite and letting her go first. And then Gunther gets a handful of ass.
I forgot about that.
And what's the line? Oh, I've got to find the line because I couldn't help but laugh.
He's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, sure you are.
Sorry, my ass. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Sorry, my ass.
It's just pure levels of cheese that are in this script.
Yeah, but it's the good kind. It's the good kind. It's the Munster.
Definitely.
But so they get out of the elevator and they get to McCarran's office where Matrix is sitting behind the desk with his feet up on it, smoking a cigar.
One of McCarran's own personal cigars. It even specifies that.
And then he says, hey, I broke into this place and actually managed to fax some secret documents to anywhere in the world. And then
to one of your many rivals.
Yes, and then the fax machine in the room turns on, which that tells you how old this script is. There's a fax machine in it.
Well, they were all like, no, you didn't. You didn't have time.
And then the fax prints out and it says, your security sucks.
Yeah, with top secret printed across the top.
And so McCarran is suitably impressed. He's like, I don't know whether to throw you out, prosecute you, or give you a job. So he gives Matrix a job, consulting with security. And Gunther is just increasingly pissed off.
Yeah, it's because of the fact, Matrix is going to be looking after his 7 other humorless, dangerous CIA types.
Yeah, because it specifically says there's 2 different kinds of guards here. There's the regular Working Joe security guards, and then there's Gunther and his 7 CIA like.
There might have been the 7 dwarfs from Fasano's Alien Free script. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I still wish we could get.
Same. It's one of the many missing ones.
And so he gives him the job, and he tells Matrix that the botched Costa Rica mission was mainly handled by law enforcement on both sides for both countries involved. But he says if there is a leak, you're going to look for it and help plug it. And so that basically gets Matrix to take the job. And so Matrix gets to work. He has all these new security devices installed, including like laser hallways, which would make Paul W.S. Anderson just cream his pants.
Oh, yeah. And this is all with a montage where McCarran is doing this like speechy voiceover.
It's like, yes, you get to be in charge of everything basically. And there's there's this thing where you can like seal you can fill the stairwells with gas, lethal or non-lethal, their choice.
Why would you give them the choice?
Yeah, I mean,
that's not as if that's going to pay off later.
And he's even like retraining all the security guards both physically and during classes. And there's this bit where they throw in a Dirty Harry reference where there's this fat guard doing jumping jacks and he says, "Too much linguine."
That's it. I'll give you my locale recipe.
What the hell?
He's pacing like a drill sergeant, shouting encouragement. So pretty much he's trying to be Apone in this script.
Yes, and I can kind of see that.
You could just they're all huffing and puffing. I can just picture him still smoking the cigar he stole from the office.
Arnold's got to have his cigars, even when they had to spend money on an effect to make it look lit in the helicopter bit in Predator.
That's I've forgotten about that. Yeah, I always thought that was weird.
Yeah, but no, that Dirty Harry reference is just strange. And if you've seen those movies, that joke comes up twice.
Oh, correct, yeah.
Because it's in the first movie, and then the same guy is back in The Enforcer, and Harry's like, "I don't want too much linguine slowing me down."
I think they got to keep their references going.
But yeah, so Matrix, he's working for McCarran for a week. He's doing all that crap, and we even see him. He's training men on a shooting course with wooden targets, and
they're doing psychology lessons as well in a classroom.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And then during the target shooting, Gunther's like, "Well, because they one of the guards shoots like a civilian target." Yeah,
isn't that Dorrit, the leader of the head of the security?
Yes, Dorrit, who becomes like Matrix's friend,
and he keeps referring to him as Colonel.
Yeah,
he doesn't refer to him as Sir or Matrix, it's Colonel. So somehow it's like Matrix gone, "This was my rank. I don't have it anymore, but you can call me it. Only my friends get to call me Colonel."
Well, I think even retired officers still technically can be referred to by their rank.
Yeah, it's like presidents can still be referred to as Mr. President, even if they are no longer in office, which worries me about Trump, because you feel like every interview he's going to be Mr. President.
But yeah, so Gunther is like, "Hey, do you think you could do a better job?" And then Matrix runs through there, gets an absolutely perfect score.
Yeah, he just nails it completely, and he's all like cocky bravado as he's
and Gunther is even more pissed off over that.
And the security guys are like cheering, "Hail the conquering hero!" Na 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 na.
And there's also scenes during the montage of him like working on his computer at home during like late nights and stuff like that.
While Jenny's watching him, worried from the background. Because he said he's going to be on as a consultant, but, because he made a promise, he'll never go into action again, even for Kirby, who was one of his best friends.
But he's not in action. He's just, he has a job. And it's weird because the first movie never establishes what his job is. I'm like, is he like a lumberjack and that's how he pays for that house?
"I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
I work all night.
Good night and I sleep all day." Okay, we're just throwing in so many random references so far. It's
it's funny. It's funny. But okay, I guess this is where I'm going to have to start talking about what the differences is, because in those interviews DeSouza gives, he talks about how in his Commando 2 script, like, the media got wind of all the crazy shit Matrix did in the first movie, and that's how he got a job as like a security consultant and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's like, "Oh, you've got the skills. I need a man like you."
So I guess this changed in the rewrites. And also, he mentioned that Cindy in his version was now a lawyer, so Melinda, I guess, got subbed out for Cindy.
Yes, so it obviously seems like kind of fortuitous, essentially, possibly in the original script, that Cindy ended up working for McCarran.
Yeah, it's like the weird Total Recall script where, like, now Total Recall 2 script where Quaid is now a cop on Mars.
"I'll take any job, even though I possibly don't have the qualifications, because I'm not myself today."
I'm like, yes, you hired the man to enforce the law who slaughtered like 100 people in the first movie,
including most of the police force.
But yeah, so I'm guessing like there's a version of this where like a lot of the setup is maybe cut down.
Most likely, you do wonder if possibly the first script is where the Die Hard stuff came in. Maybe a lot more of it happened in the complex.
Maybe.
Because Cindy was the Holly Gennaro version of the character.
And he also mentioned that Jenny was in the complex as well for that action sequence that happens later.
Yeah.
And he described it as being the big climax of the movie, so that's something that definitely changed.
Fuck yeah, it did.
We'll get there. Okay, so we get a scene where Matrix is setting up these new high-tech ID badges where you can track these people wherever they go with them. Like any McCarran employee. Even when they're off-site, you could still track them, which makes no sense to me.
Why would a lot of these people carry their name tags off-site? That's what always gets me. You know, various places I worked, if you got a name tag, you sometimes left it at work. You didn't always take it home.
Yeah, but there's this. Yeah, why would you take it out to a nightclub, which happens later?
That's the thing, yeah. It's like, I'm going to impress you because I work here, baby. Look.
Well, okay, so he's setting all this stuff up, and there's this executive guy named Trent who walks into the room and says, "Hey, McCarran, can I get off early? I got a date." And so McCarran's like, "Okay." And then right after he leaves, Dorrit enters, and he says a crate of video equipment that Trent ordered is waiting at customs at the airport and needs someone to sign for it. So Matrix is like, "Okay, I'll go do it."
And while he leaves, he actually throws the name badge to Trent.
Oh, yeah.
Because he does give it to him because Trent doesn't have it. He's just introducing it all, and it's like Trent turns up, leaves, then he gets thrown the name badge. It's like, why are you going to give it to him now? Wait till he comes back in the next day.
Yeah, and he has the because he says that you can track them from like the main console, but there's also like a mobile version of it they can carry around, and so he's fiddling with that in his car.
That's right.
And so he goes out to the airport, and then the customs guys, they're moving the crate on a forklift, and they bang into something, and it falls, breaks open, and all this white powder spills out. And I'm just like, it could be sweet and low.
It could be that sweet, sweet sugar.
And so Matrix gets...
So I just had that where Homer, The Simpsons, where Homer is like having the sugar business.
Oh, yeah.
First you have the sugar, then you get the money, then you'll get the power.
And then the ants steal the sugar.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the bit in American Psycho where they think they're snorting cocaine in the bathroom, but it's actually sweetener.
Yes, that bit was brilliant.
It's fucking sweetener. Can you be quiet? I'm trying to do drugs. But so he gets arrested over.
Well, doesn't he taste it first to find out what it is?
Yeah, he's like, he sadly he doesn't go cocaine.
Wipe it on his gums.
Cocaine.
And it just seems like it's Scarface levels of cocaine that's fallen out of these crates.
Yeah.
You expect it just to be like this pure mountain, like the Mount Everest of cocaine.
Yes.
Al Pacino just pops up behind it, snorting some more, and legs it. Hoo-ah!
And so Melinda bails him out of jail, and he's getting like hassled by like the media, and they're saying like, "Oh, you did this. And it's like, wait a minute, how'd they get that? They're like saying, "Oh, you resisted arrest and everything," and it's like, "Are you a drug kingpin, Colonel Matrix, or something like that?" It's really so.
It's just how they get all this stuff, and how are they able to create such a story that quickly?
Yep, and so Melinda, she begins to drive him to wherever McCarran is, but Matrix switches on his tracking device for the ID tags and finds Trent, who's at a disco, because he took his ID tag there for some reason.
Isn't it like a bit? Don't Gunther and McCarran turn up to the police station? I can't remember. I thought they did, unless that's something later. I can't remember.
You're probably thinking of something later, because I don't think we see them again until we end up at McCarran's estate.
Yeah, that's probably right, yeah.
Yeah, and so, okay, and Melinda, for some reason, gets very easily talked into this.
Hey, like Cindy, she's instantly in love with that physique, obviously.
But I do like it in the first movie. They never play it as like a romantic interest.
No, it's just like she's along for the ride, and even though it's crazy, as it goes on, it's like, no, I'll help you. Then I'm going to fly my plane and become a lawyer.
But so she goes to the discotheque, and Matrix goes to walk in, but this bouncer starts giving him, the doorman starts giving him crap, and he's basically making people bribe him to let them into the disco.
Oh, it's like the hot people bribe him to get in, and Johnny, Chris Farley type people can't get in or sort of something.
Yeah, this must be Disco Stew's club.
Disco Stew. Prioritize.
But Matrix just picks him up by the throat and starts squeezing him until his eyes start popping out, so I'm just thinking Total Recall there. Until eventually the guy lets him go in.
Oh, doesn't he take all the money from him and throw it into the crowd?
Yeah, he does that.
And they're all just taking the money and then giving it back to the guy to get back in.
And so Matrix gets into the club, starts heading for Trent, who got called up, and they were saying, like, apparently, like, the package wasn't supposed to get there for another 3 days. So, UPS, they fucking,
they used to be really good. They used to be really good.
Yeah, they actually used to deliver stuff on Saturdays and not sit on it for a fucking week. No, maybe it's FedEx we're dealing with here. I don't know. But so he sees Matrix coming after him, and he calls over a bouncer who tells him Matrix has been hassling him. And so there's Matrix fighting like 4 different bouncers. It's like
this reminded me of the scene from Universal Soldier: The Return when he's in the strip club.
Yeah,
it's just that it just made me think of that level of absurdity. And while this is going on, Trent is still hitting on his date.
Yeah, and then at one point during the fight, Matrix throws one through a window, and then he looks at Melinda and says, "Why do they call them bounces? They don't bounce."
He's like, what the hell?
And eventually Matrix deals with all of them, and then Trent's like, "Oh shit," and runs for the fire exit.
"I'm sorry, babe, I'm out of here." Yeah, and he's out the door.
Yeah, he goes out the fire exit, which takes him to a staircase, which, okay, but the door at the bottom is chained shut. Like, what fucked up nightclub is this? Is this is this the nightclub from Hellraiser 3? They just left the chains on one of the doors?
Yeah, Pinhead's the owner, and he's just locking everything. It's like, "Oh, I'm enjoying this." Ooh.
Yeah, so Trent has to run up to the roof, but there's too much space between him and the next building over. It's too far for him to jump, and there's a Nancy Reagan billboard saying, "Just say no."
Yeah, so that links back to what I said earlier, yeah. And it also says it's a space no normal man could jump.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
It's weird how minutely specific this script is on little sections. No normal man could make this.
Yeah. And so Matrix catches up to Trent, and he dangles him over the edge by his tie, which this is very... This whole part of the script, as fun as it is, I think you could have trimmed some of this stuff back and made it a bit shorter, because I do think the first half is a little too long.
Yeah.
In the setup. And this part just feels like they're just trying to recreate the Sully stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like they split the Sully stuff from the first film to the Bradster and Trent. They give him the little bits.
And so he's dangling Trent, and then Trent basically says he's basically saying, "You're the leak, aren't you? You caused the ambush in Costa Rica." But then Trent, like, he's about to fall, and he says, "No, man, there is no leak, but Karen set that shit up."
And while the tie is slipping through his hands ever so slowly,
he basically begs Matrix not to let him fall, and then Matrix looks over at the billboard and says, "No." And then he lets him fall, and he crashes through an awning.
Yes, that's right. He crashes through it, and
he lands in a dumpster, and he's perfectly fine. It's very Looney Tunes. And then the cops, who have been getting closer and closer since they were called in the nightclub just a bit earlier, they burst out onto the roof, and they surround Matrix. Jumps to the other building, crashing through the billboard a la Looney Tunes, and it leaves like a it's an outline
of his body through the thing, because he's not a normal man.
Yeah, he makes the jump. Yeah, as fun as this stuff is, you could have trimmed some of this back and gotten to the...
And you could just swap little bits around as well, yeah.
And that's a problem, because, I mean, this is a good script. The problem is that this is following Commando, which is, like I said, it's a movie that wastes zero time.
Exactly. It's not, that film is like an hour and a half, including credits.
Yeah, it's nuts just how fast it moves. And it doesn't feel like anything's missing or that it's rushed.
No, that's true. It's like perfectly paced. Everything flows. And so far, this script is, it's like it's up and down on a drug high, on the speed it takes.
Yes, and then it will finally settle into that Commando groove as it goes along, but we'll get, because we're
eventually.
About page 50 at this point, I think.
I think we're even earlier than that, maybe?
Like 48 or something, like 45, 50, something like that. I'm pretty sure that's where it is. My hands are busy right now, that's why I'm not checking.
No,
that's not what I meant.
No, sorry. No.
I'm opening the pack.
Did you pick it up instead of Trent?
Well, I don't know if Trent would have been picking up a Blu-ray copy of the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man.
The bees.
Yes, I'm holding that
in my eyes.
Because it's something I'm always referencing, but I don't have. So my stepbrother was like, well, you gotta get it, and I got it.
Yeah, that's true. And I've just actually realised in between all this, we've missed a scene.
We have?
Yeah, Lopez and his son turn up at the Matrix house, and Jenny's all like, "Oh, I don't want to see the guys. I can't believe you're trying to set me up." And then Lopez's son is described as like a high school hottie, and she's all like nervous and is like, "Ooh, get the fan, ooh, Mr. Darcy."
That ends up not really playing into anything
because the son doesn't appear again.
So that's another bit you can maybe cut. Like, all it does is establish that Lopez is a father, and you already mentioned his son earlier. So, but yeah. So I'm pretty sure that I'll check now. I'm pretty sure that's page 50.
Yes.
Haha! I remembered.
Colonel. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, because the scene we missed. That's why I was thinking it was earlier, just because we missed that bit. And Lopez and Matrix are also slagging off Gunther, calling him a walking hemorrhoid.
Oh, yeah. But
yeah,
okay.
Right, yeah. About 45, 50 pages in.
We're at page 53 when he leaves the Wile E. Coyote outline in the billboard.
Yeah, you are right. You've got me.
53. Yep, so I was right. Yeah, and we could have gotten to this page count a lot quicker for a Commando.
Oh, yeah, we could have got here about, basically, where I thought it was 35 pages in. We could have gotten to this point.
Yeah, you could have established, hey, Matrix has a real job, which is security consulting, and he says, hey, let me come work for you because Kirby's dead. Boom, done. Even though I did like that scene of him jumping over the wall and stuff.
That is quite funny, yeah.
Well, okay, so continuing on with the notes, we get to Melinda, who is meeting with McCarran at his estate in his private study, and Matrix bursts in from the window. She drops her tape recorder into the couch cushions on accident right before she gets shuffled out of the room.
Yeah, the French doors explode inward as Matrix bursts into the room, entering off the veranda. And in fact, there's meant to be a party going on in another part of the house, and you'd think, wow, the music must really be loud. They must have been playing Give Me Some Lovin' not to be able to hear this.
And so McCarran, during their confrontation, he admits that he was smuggling drugs. He's like, oh, there's more going on here than just profit. And there's a bit where a secretary pokes in and says Trent is looking for him. And so McCarran goes, hey, Gunther, go take care of him. And then pressures Matrix into pleading guilty and playing along. But then Matrix says, I'm going to take my chances in court. And then Melinda comes back in. And she's told, hey, Matrix says, go, you don't represent him anymore. And then she finds her recorder in the couch cushions, which was apparently still recording this whole time.
Yeah, that always was a bit sort of random.
Yeah, that's a bit convenient. And I doubt a recorder in the couch cushions you're going to hear much.
Yeah, it's just going to be muffled. Drugs.
And so McCarran, he speaks to Gunther, who's out at the bar in the party. And he says, oh, they've both been taken care of now. And McCarran's like, what the fuck? And you kind of get the idea that McCarran would not have approved of this if he knew about it.
Oddly, it's quite a nice little point, even though he's meant to be, like, he's a bit of a bastard who's betrayed General Kirby. It's like, seriously, are you going to kill all my staff?
Yeah, and then so Matrix, who drives home, and he pulls up outside of his house, and he gets accosted by the police officers, and they find the body of Trent in the back of his truck, which you think he would have smelled that, like just from all the garbage he had been diving into.
Yeah, unless he decided to go home, clean himself off before he went to McCarran's.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was enough time for that. And so they're going to arrest Matrix, and Jenny runs out of the house screaming, and a cop panics and shoots her on accident. And
I mean, what the fuck? It was just like, really? You're going to do this? And then, like, Matrix runs over, catches her as she falls, and he's like, no! And you expect the rain to be falling, crane panning up, no!
And also, he shakes off like 5 cops and just throws them away in that scene, too.
To be fair, it wouldn't be the first time in this film series he's done that.
No. But they knock him out with a rifle butt to the back of the head, and so he gets arrested. While he's
holding Jenny's body.
Yeah.
Really?
And so you see Matrix, who's appointed a public defender, but Melinda comes in and says, get out of here, you suck, I'm going to be representing him. And he tells him about the recording of McCarran, which he plans to use when it goes to trial. And she also says, hey, I'm going to help you find out about your daughter, which they should just tell him that. I don't know why they aren't.
Well, yeah, that's the normal thing. If something happened during that point, because that could be used as part of the case. He could use that as wrongful arrest because they shot his daughter. No wonder she took drugs in the 90s after all this.
Yep. That's true. And so she then meets with Judge Boyle in his chambers to tell him about the recording, hoping to secure bail for Matrix. But then Boyle calls up McCarran and tells him what's up, which shows that he's on the take.
Crisscross.
Okay, and so we get to Matrix's arraignment, and Boyle immediately refuses him bail and orders Melinda booked for contempt pending disbarment charges.
Now you go along with this security that nobody in here has ever seen before.
Yes, and there's two bailiffs, or special bailiffs that he says that are taking her to booking. And Matrix looks at him, he notices that they're Burroughs and Jennings, two of Gunther's men, and he probably picked up on this because he saw Gunther watching and thumbing his nose at him.
Yeah, it's like he's doing his own, twirling his mustache. I've got you now.
But, Matrix realizes that they're probably going to kill her, so he busts free, grabs a gun from one of the bailiffs, shoots Jennings, I think.
Yeah, he shoots one of them, and
Burroughs and Gunther make it out of there with Melinda. And in Matrix, he has to fight all the real bailiffs in the courtyard, and he ends up holding the judge as a hostage.
Yeah, because nobody's believing him that the new two random bailiffs don't belong there. You'd think the other bailiffs would realise, I don't know you. It's not your first day, is it?
And I want to say that the two bad bailiffs actually did open fire.
Yeah, and you think, and they're completely ignored.
And here's the thing: this part you could have just done the drug stuff and skipped directly to this part. I don't. You could have written around it and made this a bit shorter.
And you could have had Jenny in the courtroom, and she gets shot here
by one of the bad guys.
Boom! We've saved you 20 minutes.
That's the big flaw of this script, is that it's just too long.
Yeah, it's like 125 pages, which is like 40 pages longer than the original.
Yeah, it's just a little too much. And it's not a bad length for a movie, but there's this thing where it seems like script writers, especially amateur screenwriters, love to talk about how you have to get in at 110 to 120 pages. Not for Commando 2.
And the fact when you consider there was a film called The Witch, which starred Anna Taylor-Joy, and that was a spec script, and that only lasted like 80, 90 pages from what I read. And they said, that's so rare for a writer to do that.
Especially and then you have like established writers like these two guys, and when you get established enough to the point you're consistently getting work, you can basically do whatever the hell you want. The rules go out the window.
Exactly.
But okay, to get back to the insanity, he's holding Judge Boyle hostage. And he's like, you can't get out of here, you're surrounded. Matrix looks at the window, which is one of those windows with like wire mesh in it, and Boyle's like, forget it, you're going to need a battering ram to get through there. And the next thing you see is Boyle crashing through the window. And
you do expect a light bulb to go off above Matrix's head.
Yes, it describes him as being the human battering ram.
This is like a Mike France Punisher levels of insanity as this film goes on for each action sequence.
Yeah, well, that script is nowhere near as insane as this is, I don't think.
It probably took inspiration from this.
Oh, no doubt. But so Matrix goes climbing on. He's running along like it's like a terracotta like stepped roof. Like it's like there's like different like levels of roof on top. And he's following the car, chasing it, jumping from ledge to ledge.
And again, this is pure Jackie Chan style stuff.
Yeah, and he ends up sliding down parts of the roof from a couple of sections, and he lands directly on the hood of Gunther's car.
I just think, in any other film, is Arnie ever this physically active doing this kind of stuff?
This part, him falling down the roof reminds me a little bit of Predator when he falls off the waterfall.
Yeah, but it's that doing that jumping from roof to roof as he's running across, and it's like maybe Total Recall, but it's the jumping from the roof, sliding down, and landing on the car. You'd think, nah, really?
I think the fact that we're reading it on the page makes it stand out a bit more because we have more time to think about it than we would in the actual movie.
We haven't taken enough cocaine to read the script.
But no, okay. So he's on the hood of the car. He punches through the windshield, so he is just a superhero now. Grabs Burroughs and takes him with him as Gunther hits the brakes. And so him and Burroughs are fighting in the middle of traffic. And there's a bit where they're like rolling around on the ground. And there's And and Burroughs threatens to shove the gun up Matrix's ass and give him a lead enema. And eventually, it's so ridiculous. This is probably my favorite bit in the entire script.
This is why I'm laughing.
This is amazing. He grabs the handcuffs off of the fake bailiff outfit, and then he hooks Burroughs' gun hand onto a passing bus, and he bounces off the side and gets up and sees that his hand has been ripped off. And Matrix goes, "No applause." And then, karate kicks him in front of another bus, which runs him over and kills him.
It's like, what the fuck?
That scene alone is why this movie should have been made.
They could have nicked this for any... They could have done, a futuristic version for this in Total Recall. With, the taxi cab type of things that Benny drives. He's just getting... the guy's just bouncing over those constantly.
I got 5 kids.
4, bang. 3, bang. 2, bang. No more kids to feed.
I'm not even married. But I mean, that moment is just so crazy. And basically, during that fight, Melinda is keeping Gunther busy. And the tape went out the window as well when he landed on the brakes, and it's laying there in the middle of the street. And so eventually Gunther, slams Melinda in the face with the elbow and knocks her out. And then drives away. I think he actually runs over Matrix.
He does, yeah. Matrix gets bounced in his own way.
And then Matrix, he picks up the tape and then leaves on foot.
Because he's not a normal man.
No, he's not. We already knew that from the first movie, but...
Oddly, that was kind of more realistic than this one.
Yeah, weirdly.
He actually gets scarred. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, he gets shot in the arm and he can't use his arm. Well, he kind of uses it. They kind of fucked that up. But Matrix, he calls McCarran. He says, "I'll trade the tape for the girl." And McCarran agrees and sets the meeting for sunrise. And so then we see Matrix visiting Jenny in the surprisingly abandoned hospital. So I guess this takes place in the Halloween.
Yeah, we had no security sitting outside. Where are the nurses? This is what happens when you don't have a free health service like the NHS in the UK. There's nobody around.
And so he's sitting there by her bedside, and he's talking about, when your mother and I came here, we thought this was a good place to raise a child, but now it's all messed up with drugs and corruption.
I'm going to make it late.
I promised you I'd never go to war again, but the war has come to me. But I swear, and he whispers, "I'll be back," and then leaves. And literally seconds after he leaves, Jenny wakes up out of her coma.
Daddy!
That's the last we see or hear of her.
It is. It's like they introduce a lot of characters in the script who just vanish. And it's we've got to keep the cast small. No cutting back to Valverde this time.
But her being in the hospital, I like that she's in the hospital and she's not just getting kidnapped again, because that would have been a little too close.
No, exactly. Yeah, that would have been a pure retread. At least there are differences, and
Yeah, and in those interviews, DeSalza says that in at least in his initial draft, it was Cindy as a lawyer and Jenny were both being held at the office building.
Well, it's the sequel. You've got to make things twice as different as the first one.
Although I am glad they changed those things, because if it was just her and Cindy getting kidnapped, it would have been, we've seen this.
Yeah, but they could probably done a bit where Jenny escapes and it's like, I did this before, I know what to do, and just rips off a wall panel and climbs into an air vent or something. Yeah. How could the same shit happen to the same girl twice?
Okay, so Matrix, he heads out to the McCarran complex at dawn, and he meets Dorrit outside, and he says, hey, him and the regular security guards, they've been told to make sure he enters the main building and then stay at their posts, and that only the remaining of Gunther's men are still around.
Yeah. They've built up the characters like Dorrit and the other security team. You think that you expect them to be like Matrix's new army sort of thing, his new unit.
But no, Matrix doesn't need an army.
No, not this time. And
so Matrix enters the building where where 4 of Gunther's men are waiting, and there's a 5th who's up in the office. But then 3 video screens come on showing McCarran, Gunther, and the last of the men who's holding Melinda at gunpoint. And they tell Matrix, you should have known this was a trap, right? He says, I know, but I came here out of honor, something you wouldn't understand.
Mic drop.
Yeah, and so they say, hand over the tape. So he puts a tape in the player on the camera device, and it's give me some of it.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that. It's oddly, I didn't actually expect it. even though it was clearly set up, I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
And then he grabs one of the men, uses it as a human shield, takes the Uzi from him, and mows down all but one of the others, who books it down the hall, and then Matrix shoots the video screens just to be a dick.
So, yeah, I paid to set this up. I can do whatever I want with this crap.
And so the surviving man, whose name I remember to write down now, is named Scudder. He makes it past the laser hallway that Matrix had installed, and then Gunther remotely switches it on. And so Matrix sees this, dives into the men's room, opens up the utility closet in there, and so he grabs a janitor, pulls the mirrors off the walls, and then he tapes up the mirrors, uses like a barrier around the cart, which
I think it's like he sets it up as like a sort of roof on the car, and he just picture Flintstones, his feet, and through the car is running down the hallway.
And so those reflect the lasers off of them, and so he gets down to the end where Scudder is waiting,
freaking him out because he's so not expecting it. It's like, something's going on.
And so he grabs Scudder, tosses him onto the cart. He takes his weapon, too, but tosses him onto the cart and then wheels it down the hall where the lasers, would say, renders him into smoke. And Matrix
turned him into fine bits of linguine. That's his locale recepe.
Yeah, but he's looking at the smoking pieces. He goes like, smoking's a bad habit, kill you, or something like that. Can you tell that the second half of this script has gotten amazing?
This is pure like Commando. This is just fast-paced randomness.
Yeah, just trim down the plot setup just a little bit. Like maybe have Matrix already working as a contractor or a consultant, and just have him run into Kirby, and they're both sort of maybe talking about McCarran's place.
Yeah, I'm working with this guy McCarran. He could use a guy like you. No, I'm not interested. It would take me away from... I don't know why I'm giving him a French accent. Seriously. I do not know why I would... I do not want to go away from Jenny.
Commando 2, starring Van Damme.
Directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
With Michael Wincott playing McCarran.
And Ron Perlman as Gunther.
All right, so Matrix, just get through that step a little bit faster so we can get to the crazy action. And I also am not a huge fan of the whole Matrix goes on trial and now he's a fugitive. And I totally get why they're doing that, because they want to recreate the sense of urgency and the fact that he can't go to anybody for help like he is in the original movie. But
and it does make sense. And as you said, if they'd done it from when he gets arrested for the drugs and then he's on trial, you could have this whole bit where he's in jail for a couple of days before arraignment.
And it would have worked a little bit better. Or just don't do the whole arrested for murder thing. Just have
he's
him
arrested for drugs. Yeah.
He gets bailed out. He goes to trial. He goes to the arraignment, and then all that crazy shit breaks.
Yeah, and that's why Jenny's in the hospital.
Yes, not
blue on white violence.
Not currently topical police action. Save that for the Cobra sequel.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Matrix, he makes his way to the armory, grabs a shitload of weapons, including a grenade launcher.
He loves those grenade rocket launchers, doesn't he? It's like it's his go-to thing. I need it for the poster.
Yeah, he grabs a Laws rocket. But so McCarran's like he goes. Yeah, he actually says, okay, go Gunther. You turn on the gas in the stairwells, lethal, of course. And he has the other remaining man. He has him go take Melinda up to the roof and get the helicopter started. And Gunther is like, I'm going to remain behind and finish this personal business with Matrix. And it's like, I'm not going to, he's like, something like, I'll do this for free or something like that.
It's like he's essentially being Bennett at this point. It's like, I've got personal beef with this guy. I'm going to kick his ass.
Although
I'm going to shoot you in the balls.
He has less of a beef. He seems to have less of a beef than Bennett did. Oh, I was just really annoyed by this guy
This guy showed me up in front of my CIA buddies.
And so Matrix goes up the staircase, holding his breath, gets all the way up from the bottom to the top floor.
And you think, how many floors are there meant to be in this building?
A lot, I guess. But he blows the door off at the top of a grenade launcher. And so he gets him out of the gas, but then some of the roof falls on him from the blast. And then Gunther approaches and is about to finish him off, but then Matrix points the rocket at him from under the rubble and then blows him away, which punches him through the wall and outside the door. Then the security guards are watching and they're like, there's like bits and pieces of Gunther just raining down everywhere. And Dorrit says, guys, we're supposed to stay on our post.
I did love that bit, yeah. But it's just sad that this is actually the final bit we see of Dora. I felt there could have been a bit more with them.
Yeah, he could have gone to Central America with them for the next.
Yeah, in Commando 3.
Yeah, maybe. But okay. So we also got a scene earlier of McCarran, who was there's a security station right before you go up the stairs to the roof, and he was in there and he was calling someone for help, saying, "I don't care about your timetable. I need you to come bail me out of this." So it's like, ooh, who is he talking to?
Foreshadow.
5 minutes beforehand.
Yeah, lazy foreshadow.
And so Matrix, he blows open the security station door with a grenade, heads up to the roof, and McCarran buys himself time to escape by threatening to have his man shoot Melinda. And so as the helicopter, I'm going to have to start calling it by the different helicopter names because there's multiple helicopters here. It's a Jet Ranger. And as it takes off, one of the Hueys from the opening, the unmarked helicopters, moves into view and begins firing on Matrix, who runs after McCarran's Jet Ranger and grabs onto the skid, which is so slick he has a hard time holding on. And I'm just thinking of that line from So I Married an Axe Murderer about how I can't hang on to the thing behind the landing thing on the helicopter.
Yeah.
But Matrix is just struggling to hold on, and the Huey pulls up beside him, and the pilot, whose face is behind like a helmet, sends a message to Matrix over the loudspeaker. And he says, "I'm disappointed in you that you ended up like this." And then Matrix realizes that the man flying the Huey is
dun dun dun,
General Kirby.
But he's dead. No,
still alive and working with the bad guys.
You son of a bitch.
He says, "Matrix, I'll get you out of this so long as you join him," and leads the team under his command. He asks for an oath of loyalty, and then Matrix gives him the finger.
Yeah.
And then Kirby...
it's like he's over that shot remarkably quickly of one of his best friends being back from the dead.
Yes. And I do like him being a bad guy because it gives the that "until the next time" line at the end of the first movie. It gives it like a sinister edge to it.
That's true, yeah. No chance. Actually, there is a chance.
But so then Kirby has his guys open fire on Matrix, but they miss and hit the Jet Ranger, so McCarran like freaks out and tells him to stop. And so then the Huey maneuvers under the Jet Ranger and attempts to cut up Matrix with the rotors, but he keeps like doing like chin-ups far enough up so they can't hit him.
I love that. It's like, I've still got to train for the Olympics, even while I'm saving the world.
And then McCarran, who's just tired of this, leans out to the Jet Ranger to shoot Matrix, who just pulls him down and then drops him into the rotors. And
then he hit the fan.
Yeah, literally. And so he climbs up into the Jet Ranger, and the pilot is like, "Where's McCarran?" He's
like, another one to add to the list of Arnie one-liners.
And so there's this whole thing where the pilot is like, "I know you won't shoot me, Matrix, because you can't fly a helicopter and you need me." He goes like, "You're right, I won't shoot." And put pins on the grenades on his vest and then chucks them out of the window and says, "God, I want to get blood on the upholstery."
And it's just like, what the fuck? Man.
And the guy blows up and he tears the tape off Melinda's mouth and she's giving him shit. And this is the most Cindy-like part of this script.
Yeah, you could see where Cindy was possibly originally meant to be this character.
Because she's like giving him the same kind of back talk that she would in the original Commando. And so it's like, "Can you fly this thing?" He's like...
I love that. It's just like, yeah, I'm actually a bit over my head at this moment.
And so there's this whole chase scene, and Melinda says that they mentioned they were going to take her to Panama, and that they busted out Petroza to keep supply lines open, whatever that means. He says, "Your friend Lopez is due to fly some sort of shipment down there soon." Like, how does she know about Lopez? Oh wait, because he works for McCarran. That's
because he's flown that Jet Ranger before, yeah. Because this is obviously meant to be the same helicopter that turned up at Matrix's at the start of the film, or start of the script.
Start of the script, yeah, I believe so.
At the start of the film, because I can picture it so vividly.
But then, and she says all that, and he's supposed to take off from Air Force Base. Which I didn't bother writing the name for it down, but it's not important.
It's generic Air Force Base.
And so we get this big chase scene in Matrix. You can't really fly the helicopter. Almost crashes into several buildings.
You do expect the Brazilian to start playing again as we get this really bad helicopter ballet going on.
Yep. And so they're flying over. I think they say it's MacArthur Park, and he has Melinda jump out into the lake. And the helicopter crashes and blows up, and you think Matrix was in there. And Melinda's like, "Oh no!" And then the Huey lands, and they grab her and pull her into the helicopter. And I'm like, why don't they just kill her at this point?
Yeah, it does. It does make you what you'd think that Kirby turns out to be the bad guy. This could, in the fact he's now probably one of the few bad guys left. He could show how much evil he's become. He could take on that, Victorian mustache twirling.
Yeah, definitely.
Put her in front of a train track and then go.
And so instead of just strafing the lake once, just to double tap, they fly away. So Matrix comes up from under the lake. He's okay, and he's like really angry, like. Grr. Okay, so we're at about page 90-ish, and
yeah,
it's gone.
And this is where you'd expect the film to actually end.
But there's still more craziness to come, and that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. The insanity levels keep rising.
And so from there, yeah, Matrix, he sneaks into the Air Force base that the shipment is taking off from, very Metal Gear Solid. And it is very Metal Gear Solid, because he snags a mechanic's overalls to blend in. It's like that Metal Gear Solid 3 bit where you have to disguise yourself as a mechanic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so he sees Lopez impersonating an Air Force pilot. He's on a C-130 transport plane. So he sneaks aboard that plane, and as the plane reaches cruising altitude, Matrix switches on the autopilot and then confronts Lopez, who tells him that the operation consists of smuggling weapons to rebels in Central America and then smuggling Pedrosa's cocaine back into the U.S. in return. And Kirby
raising the money that would then fund it all.
Yep. And then Kirby set all this up with military funding for his operation, supplying the rebels dried up, and he turned to Pedrosa in desperation. But he had to bust Pedrosa out when he got himself caught on U.S. soil in order to keep the supply lines open and keep everything flowing. So it's very much inspired by the Iran-Contra scandal in the 80s.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, because that's fair. And that shows that the script is very much of its time.
And so Matrix, he promises Lopez he won't make his son an orphan, and so he lets him live. And then he parachutes out of the plane, and he comes across a village where a wedding procession is in progress.
I love this. I love this bit. It
gets ridiculous. But then it cuts away to Pedrosa, who has a private valley. He's playing paintball with his men who let him win. It's a private valley which consists of his house on a hill, a landing strip for an airplane, cocaine fields, and processing plants.
Yeah, cocaine as far as the eye can see. Scarface would be proud of how much cocaine there is.
He's playing the paintball games, and one of the men actually hits him, and he shoots him with a real gun and kills him.
And it specifies that this kid is new. He doesn't know to let the boss win. He's young.
You think that would be the first thing they'd tell him?
Yeah.
But then
let the boss win. Let the Wookiee win.
Yes. Then we see Kirby. He's in the mansion, and he tells Melinda that he regrets this situation. He doesn't know what to do with her yet. And he sees Lopez coming in for a landing. And so Lopez, he sees the corpse of the soldier that Pedrosa killed for tagging him in the game, and he's visibly sickened by it. He's like, unload this shit quick, I want to get out of here as soon as possible.
It's like they've suddenly thrown character at Lopez bar the little bit at the start.
It's okay. We cut back to Matrix in the village, where the village priest is telling him that Pedrosa uses them as slave labor to grow the cocaine. And he also says, Matrix, you have no chance of sneaking into the valley undetected because he has these security sensors set up there. And then Matrix looks at the bride and groom, and he gets an idea. And once again, you can almost see that light bulb turning on.
Yeah, you do expect it just to be like animated in for him.
Or like that bit in Detroit Rock City where there's just a light bulb behind Edward Furlong.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, or you just get like the villagers, they actually light a candle above his head. Excuse me.
It's okay. We see the wedding procession. They're approaching a roadblock set up by Pedrosa's men near the entrance to his little private valley, and it has one of the trucks with a quad 50 on it. And so the script is practically just bursting at the seams, ready to give away this twist they're about to do, going like, the bride is suddenly much taller and bigger. And like the soldiers, they attempt to molest the bride. And
that's right. They're all like, I like big women.
It's like, I want, it's like to be good for working in the fields. It's like, I want to kiss first. And then they lift up and they see Matrix, who also has an M16 and shoots them all dead.
This is just absurd. I'm quite surprised there wasn't a proper one-liner before he fired.
Yeah.
I don't kiss on a first date.
And then back at the mansion, they hear the gunfire and they're like, what the fuck? But then, Matrix, he gets in the truck that was part of the roadblock. It's got a quad 50 mounted on the back, and the priest turns off the brakes, and the villagers push the truck towards the mansion. And there's a line from the priest I'm going to have to find because it was actually pretty funny.
Oh God, yeah. I did love this little bit. It was.
He says, "Are you a Christian, my son?" "Yes, Father." "Then say an act of contrition as you go to your death so that God may forgive your sins." He's like, "Don't worry, Father. God and I have an understanding."
That is actually a pretty badass little moment, that.
And so they push it. And then it rolls through the fields, and Matrix, he jumps behind the quad 50, and all these men just come swarming in to attack him. He just shreds them. It's like Rambo 4, that ending scene, just amped up to a crazy degree. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's his assault on the compound from the first one, and from Commando, when he's just taking out all the guards, and you can see the launch and things that are sending the people flying. Yeah, crossed with Rambo 4. It's like he's having the time of his life.
And then the two unmarked Hueys, they enter the battle, and Matrix actually takes one of them down before the other one destroys the truck, and he gets out and starts running around in the fields. And so Pedrosa, Kirby, and their men, they start hunting Matrix down in the field. Like, Pedrosa and his guys are on horseback, so it's almost like Planet of the Apes. I was just thinking that as well. Which is funny. You do expect that the Planet of the Apes theme is there riding to be playing, or the theme from the TV show or something. And it's just funny because Arnold almost did a Planet of the Apes movie twice.
Twice, yeah. So many films we could have had.
But no, and eventually Matrix gets Pedrosa and holds them at knife point. And so we get this argument between Matrix and Kirby. He's like, "I did what I had to do because losing Nicaragua to the commies would be an unacceptable loss. And if they get a foothold in this hemisphere, then they could have tanks coming up into the U.S. from Mexico, coming over the border." And I'm like, dude, you have watched Red Dawn one too many times.
America!
And I love Red Dawn, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's just a random cast in that film, I swear.
And he also says he had to fake his death because a Senate investigation was brewing, and he felt it was best to drop out of sight permanently to avoid a public scandal. And he says Oliver North, if he had the brains or the balls, should have done the same thing.
I do that, yeah. It's like, yeah, he's like delusions of grandeur sort of feeling to him.
And you get Matrix going like, "But at what cost? People are dying. They're sick and dying from the drugs. It's like, only the weak. If we get rid of the addicts, we'll be a better nation for it." And I'm like, okay, tone down the war on drugs rhetoric here, people. It's a little much.
Yeah, all we need is the fact that the drugs are funding America. Sort of thing, is that
basically. And so, basically, this goes on for a little while, but then Lopez sneaks up behind Matrix and shoots him in the back, and then in the chest when he drops Pedrosa to turn around, and Matrix falls to the ground. It says he is dead.
Yeah, because Matrix can see him in something. It's like, can he see him in the knife?
He says later that he saw him in the knife.
That's right, yeah. I knew you had something planned.
Although he should have smelt him coming, considering in the original movie he says he could smell the bad guys coming at his house.
Yeah, downwind. How would you know? Downwind. But then again, if he took too big a breath, it would just got a nose full of cocaine, considering where they are.
Yep. But then Pedrosa is like attacking Matrix's body. Is like, but then Lopez is like, "I'm not gonna let you do that. He's my friend." He goes like, "Hey, Kirby, have your men move it on to the plane, and I'll dump it out over the jungle so there's no evidence. So just keep this asshole from fucking with the corpse."
Yeah, I'm a good guy. Yeah. We can't.
And once the plane is taken off, Matrix gets back up, revealing he was shot with a paintball gun that Lopez lifted off the dead guy earlier.
Yeah, that was the thing. And so that obviously, I don't know why, because obviously they're just using red paintballs, and you think, can't you afford another colour?
Yeah, well, they had multiple colors. They had like blue and green as well.
Yeah, so it's just luckily that the dead young guy had red paintballs.
And he's like, "Oh, I could see you coming reflected in the knife. I knew you had something in mind, blah, 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 blah." And, okay, I'm gonna have to call bullshit that all these trained military people can't tell the difference between a paintball and a bullet. And also the fact that it obviously wouldn't make the same sound as a real gun.
No, that's true. Although I suppose because it's Pedrosa and his hired drug army, they're not going to be properly trained, are they? Or they've probably been dulled by working with him.
Yeah, but Kirby's right there.
Yeah, Kirby's like, Kirby's like, there, let him live. He's my friend. I gave him this one last chance.
But then Matrix, he yanks the handle labeled fuel dump clean off, and then has Lopez circle over the cocaine fields until the fuel is out. And then Kirby calls up Lopez and is like, hey, what the fuck is going on? And then Matrix, takes over the radio and reveals his presence. And so Kirby is like, block the runway. And so they pile a bunch of vehicles on there. And then Matrix opens the door on the side of the plane, fires a flare into the field, setting off the biggest explosion in movie history, so he destroys all the cocaine.
This is like 2 movies worth of pyro budget. This is the opening of Tropic Thunder.
Oh, even bigger.
Even bigger, yeah.
Not to mention they have a whole plane full of cocaine with them right now.
Oh, yeah, so much cocaine.
And so he says, hey, let's go land in the mansion's driveway, which is very, very short. And so as they land, Matrix is firing from the doors while Pedrosa's men fire at them, and then they crash into the building.
Which contains Kirby, Pedrosa, and Melinda, who's actually still there at this point.
Yes. And so it's like, yeah, they didn't think that one through, did they? But they collide directly with Pedrosa and pin him to the wall and crush him to death.
Gotta admit, though, that would be a cool death to see on screen.
Oh, yes, it totally would be. And
not as good as Burroughs. Trying to catch the bus.
No, that was too good. But then Matrix jumps out of the plane and says, somebody order a plane full of cocaine?
Yeah, they ran out of one-liners up at this point, so I'm just going to state the obvious.
And then, he shoots, the last of the men who are still alive.
Got to make sure nobody's left. Nobody.
And the mansion is a smoking ruin, and they find Melinda, who's okay because she hid underneath a couch.
God, what kind of couches do these people have? They are strong. I mean, I wish I had a couch like this.
It's that rich Corinthian leather, man.
Yes, it is.
And Matrix is like, Paco, get her out of here. And so Lopez gets her out of the building, and he searches the ruins for Kirby. And so he finds the general. One side of his face and his body is badly mangled. He's looking kind of like Two-Face.
Yeah, that means they'd have to have recast him with Tommy Lee Jones. Sorry, Billy D.
Sorry, guy from the first movie.
Yeah, sorry, random guy who bookended the film for us.
But no, they have a bit of a gunfight where they're sending off shots at each other, and he's trying to convince Kirby to turn himself in and stand trial. And Matrix gives this a kind of a cringy speech about the Constitution, like I read my bootleg version of it in East Germany, and now you're pissing on it.
It's like it's a sequel to his drug speech at the beginning of the film in the car.
I'm like, is this Commando or fucking Captain America?
America, fuck yeah.
And Jesus, eventually Kirby is just like, I don't want to, stand public trial and be humiliated, so he turns his gun on himself and blows his head off. And
again, Matrix runs and catches the body again before it hits the floor. How quick is he? Seriously.
He's the Flash.
Yeah, the wrong superhero, yeah.
And so he exits, he meets back up with Lopez and Melinda, who are just hanging out in the driveway amidst all this chaos. There's all the fields are burning, everything has been blown up, they're just standing there, and he goes like, all right, we head home. And you're like, it's going to be a hell of a walk.
And that's the ending. And they walk off through the carnage into the jungle, and that's how it ends.
It ends with the same song.
Yeah.
We fight for love.
Which was the only song Michael DeBar's did with Power Station. They split up after they did this song.
So that was Commando 2.
And when I finished this bit, I was just thinking, how the fuck is he going to get out of, going to jail?
I don't know. How did he get out of...
He shot up a courtroom. He kidnapped a judge, threw a judge through a window. He's got no proof left that he wasn't the one with the drugs, unless Melinda still somehow has the tape.
Well, Matrix still has the tape because he picked it up off the road.
All right, but where did he put it?
They don't say.
Unless he left it with Jenny.
Probably.
They'll probably, if in a revision, they'd probably do a shot of him handing her the tape. Keep this safe till I'm back.
It's like stuffing it inside your cast.
Yeah. Waking her up and she's got an itch and she's trying to scratch. It's like, Daddy, you son of a bitch.
She has to break it open like The Rock in Furious 7.
Yeah. Time to go to work.
So yeah, this script was a lot of fun.
It was just absurd levels of what the fuckery.
They could easily have made this. I think the issues with this is that it happened a little too late. The Cold War stuff would have been outdated within a year or two of this thing being written. It did need to be shortened a bit.
A good 30, 35 pages at least.
Yeah, I'd say 20 pages I think you could save.
And a lot of that would be the segments we've talked about.
Like, you didn't need him chasing... As fun as some of that stuff was, you didn't need the Sully analog as much as he was in this.
No, exactly. You could have had like a Sully character. Maybe, you could treat... Maybe that's the guy he beats up to sneak onto the Air Force base to get on the plane.
Or he could have been at the building.
Yeah, he could have been one of the guys in the building.
Yeah, something like that. And the whole framed for murder thing you could have cut out. But I think what really happened with this was just, even because there's no word out there whatsoever as to why this wasn't made, but I just think what it was, this is dated 89, and Arnold would have been busy making stuff like Total Recall and Kindergarten Cop during that year he was filming it, and they were out the next year. And I can kind of see why he would maybe go for those first, because Total Recall is, the science fiction movie, and he had good luck with that and the Terminator and
he'd wanted to work with Verhoeven for a bit. I think he was looking forward to working with him. So
yeah, I think he wanted Verhoeven to do.
That would be round about the right time.
Because I know he thought Starsky wasn't up to the task.
Even Starsky was the third director. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately.
Oh, he was the third director on The Running Man?
I think he was the third director. I think the first two got fired in short succession, or the first guy got fired. The guy, one of the other guys Arnie wanted, the studio didn't want him, so they hired Starsky instead.
Yeah, but I know he felt that the guy wasn't up to snuff on directing it, but I thought he did fine.
Oh, yeah, so definitely.
And Kindergarten Cop would have been him stretching his legs a little bit, acting wise. Would have been him doing a little bit more of a different role, kind of like he did with Twins.
So it was possibly at that point it might have been seen as if he hadn't have done those films, it would have. If he had have done because he did those films, it would have been seen as too much of a step back maybe for him.
Yeah, and if you look at it, he didn't do that many sequels like he did. Outside the Terminator movies, he had like Conan the Destroyer, and that was it. Because, he also turned down Predator 2, which they had a role for him in that.
Yeah.
And, I don't really count the Expendables movies, because let's be honest, those are Stallone movies guest starring a whole bunch of other people.
And for Arnie, those are glorified cameos anyway.
And except for the first movie where it's Stallone and a whole lot of Statham with a subplot nobody gives a shit about.
Yeah, with the bird from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, and he was smart enough to say no to Escape Plan 2 and 3.
Yep. Yeah, he was the only one smart enough in that franchise.
Those straight-to-streaming movies, which Stallone should be above that shit, frankly.
And you think, because initially people wanted a sequel to Escape Plan, you'd think that would have been a bigger thing, but it was just somehow fell apart.
And it's like, of all these things, like, he can't get, like, he won't do a sequel to Cobra, he won't do a sequel to Tango and Cash, but he does two sequels to Escape Plan back to back. Like, what the fuck?
He wants those trilogies, after doing the Expendables trilogy, he needs that dollar.
But yeah, I think this is a movie that just sort of fell through the cracks because Arnold had such a busy schedule, because of course he had those two movies and he eventually moved on to do Terminator 2 the next year, which of course would have been a huge, like, schedule eater. Oh
yeah, because that would almost been like a year worth of stuff, pre-production and then post as well.
And knowing James Cameron, it would have taken a long time to work on.
Yeah, Christ.
But by the time he would have had time to do Commando 2, I think it just the Cold War stuff would have outdated itself, and it would have been, if he had made it, it would have been kind of like his Rambo 3, where the whole intense 80s drugs thing and the Cold War stuff just wouldn't have really worked anymore in that environment.
Well, yeah, because it would have been like 93, 94. We would have been well past that at that point, yeah. Unless they did some like Gulf War allegory change. I don't know.
Unless they just took out the communism stuff and made it like, oh, this is about America being the best or something. I don't know. Because, I mean, in a way, we did get the Arnold versus drug dealers movie. It was called Collateral Damage.
Well, yeah. And yeah, Christ, yeah.
That's a decent one.
That's an underrated Arnie film at the time.
It's because hardly anybody saw it because they dumped it in, February because of 9/11?
Yeah, because it was meant to come out before, and then they had to re-film certain bits because of it.
But that's the movie where he's busting up that underground reporter's office, going like, "You want collateral damage? I'll give you fucking collateral damage."
I love that, and he beats down on a woman. Who's the villain? You know?
And Elias Koteas just gets shot in the head
again.
He got John Leguizamo in there. I need to watch that one again. I watched that a shitload when it first came out on DVD.
I think I've still got the DVD. I'll have to check. I've got so many DVDs and stuff. I can't remember everything I got.
For late period Arnold, that movie was really, really good.
Yeah, especially around the films that he was doing at the time, like The Sixth Day and...
Oh, Sixth Day is entertaining. It just should have been R instead of PG-13.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's got one of Arnold's all-time best lines in it when he says, "You should clone yourself while you're still alive." So I could understand your unique point of view? No. So you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I love that line. He does get some really snappy one-liners in those films, even though they're not like what would you class as his best years.
What would you? It's like well, I told you to go screw yourself. I didn't mean it literally. And End of Days is not one of his greatest movies, but it does have that bit where he's just going insane on Gabriel Byrne, like, "You're a fucking choir boy compared to me."
I love that. The fact is Gabriel Byrne just chewing that scenery for all it's worth.
It's like, "You fucking shot me. Stop being such a pussy." I could do Arnold. I could quote most of Commando myself.
You could do it in a much better accent than I ever could. At least you get the Eastern European of it. I get the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah. All that matters now is Jenny.
See, actually, going back just a bit of the where he's in the hospital when he sees Jenny in the hospital. I'm surprised you didn't have Lopez's son just sat there with her as well.
Yeah, that would have actually given that character a bit of a point,
rather than they've introduced a hottie who's replaced the Bradster because he's in prison for drugs. I'm surprised they didn't just have in the script. They didn't have a scene where Arnie sat in a cell next to Bradster saying, "You don't like drugs, eh? Son of a fucking hypocrite."
Yeah, you want me to do the hospital speech before we go?
Do it, please.
All right.
Yeah.
Interior, Jenny's room. Dimly lit, she lies unconscious, her breathing shallow, wires and tubes hooking her up to machines. Sounds like a Cenobite. It doesn't actually say that, I just interjected that. Long beat. A shadow looms over her fragile form. Matrix! Stands over her, his fatherly heart breaking. He sits down and is silent for a time, pushing slowly as he speaks. "We thought this would be a good place to raise a child, your mother and I, so we came to this country. Jenny, you find it so easy to forgive. I find it so difficult. You are the best and gentlest part of me. If you die, I will have no gentleness left. And then God help them. God help them all." We realize that Matrix, so immovable, so fierce, is holding back tears. He takes her small hand tenderly in his. "I promised you I'd never go back to war, but the war has come to me. I have to break my promise. Please forgive me." Matrix leans over her, gives her a gentle kiss, and whispers fiercely in her ear, "I'll be back."
We fight for love.
I think that's a good way to end it.
Yeah, spot on.
So that was Commando 2. Awesome script. Just needed some trimming down and refining, but it could have been an excellent piece of work if they really just went ahead with it.
Yeah, third draft, and it would have been filmable right there and then.
Third draft, get Joe Esterhaz to come in and punch it up.
Oh.
Get Shane Black and Fred Decker to add a super Matrix. An upgrade Matrix
clone. To be fair, all the stuff Matrix could do in this film, I'm not surprised it hasn't got a Black Decker credit. Commando 2 brought to you by Black & Decker.
But yeah, I do think it would have been interesting to have seen this get made because, like, I mean, Commando, you could almost do like a billion different action movies just with that character.
Well, yeah, you can put him in a lot of different situations, and you've got a semi-sustainable franchise.
You could do a crossover with Rambo.
Oh, yeah, both of them holding quad 50s. Who do you think? Yeah, who do you think you are?
Nothing is over. Nothing. You always say that.
If I can change, no, wrong franchise. If I can change, you can change.
He's like a shoe shine, Sam. Yeah, and you don't do it. Okay. And then in that one, it turns out that Colonel Troutman was part of General Kirby's operation.
Oh, yeah, that's why he's in the third one.
He's trying to get the poppies out of Afghanistan.
That's why he was there.
Okay, we've just created our own cinematic universe here, so I think on that note,
yeah, let's leave it there for the fine folks listening at home.
Who probably think we're high off our asses right now.
To be fair, considering the amount of drugs in this script, it wouldn't be a surprise. Probably soaking up off the pages for us.
But hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Remember to check out those social media links, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Blogger. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Leave a review because I will read it, whether it's positive or negative. Even if it's something like, fuck this dumbass KiramidHead, I hope he sucks a dick, I will read that out in the podcast episode because at least it should be funny.
And if it's a comment saying, who the fuck is this guest host? What crazy stuff is he taking? Why haven't the police arrested him? I'll give that a heart on YouTube. Why does this
guy hate David Giler so much?
I hear he's not so bad. You son of a bitch.
So yeah, on that note, see you guys next time, which should either be a solo episode or a Deus Deacon episode, if I can wrangle him.
I'm sure you'll be able to drag him into something.
Yeah, until then, guys, bye.
Bye. No chance. See, I can't even do the accent.